Coming up on this episode.
I was doing what I loved, working for an amazing radio station. And I had already made this name, Eddy Kimani, having been in media up to that point. Now, this is when, now looking within that 10 years, it's also the period when I got married. And then here comes this realization that Superman also cries. Superman also falls down to his knees. And sometimes Superman reaches out to ask for help. But I didn't know that.
At what point was rock bottom?
Rock bottom is when I went home and knocked on my family home. My mom opened the door for me and I told her I failed. I need a place to stay. I was 39 years old at the time.
A couple of months ago, our friends at WeGoPay gave us a platform which you used to support this podcast, Living Truthfully. And we thank you for those of you that have gone through this journey with us. Now, we're going to give you something back. Imagine the possibility of buying airtime and getting some of that cash back. That possibility is now true with WeGoPay Airtime, an exciting new product for all your airtime purchases. WeGoPay is giving you a platform to buy your airtime and get 2% cash back on every airtime purchase. What's better, you can also earn more when you refer people using your unique invite code. You'll earn 2% for every purchase made from your referrals. And that cash is available immediately on M-Pesa, and you can use it to buy airtime or to pay other bills. Use *483*30# to start earning passive income. You purchase your airtime using the pay bill 787055 and use the account number as your phone number. Now I'll do you a solid. Use my code LT001 to start you off. Go ahead, purchase some airtime and get some passive income. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time it is, whichever part of this world you are in. Welcome to Living Truthfully, episode 49. Yes, it's the new year, and we are doing this thing, Annie. I'm so excited. You guys can't, Annie, I don't even know what to tell you. I'm excited because there's a new sense of purpose, a new sense of just optimism that comes with the year 2020. And I want to thank you all so much that have been listening to the podcast. Thank you so much for the feedback you've been giving me. Thank you so much for engaging with the conversation that we are having about decade thinking. And I don't know what you're going through right now, but we're at the turn of a new decade. And at the turn of a new decade, there's opportunity for new hope. There's opportunity for new intentionality. There's opportunity to turn around some of the things that didn't work in the last decade. And what I'm hoping is that you will take advantage of the newness that comes with the decade to just change perspective and change focus. Now, with me in studio today, I have a real superstar. I have with me in studio a true celebrity. Like true. Like, you know, kuna wale ambao tunajaribu, kuna wale ambao ni celebrity fake, and then there's those that are the man, the super sports anchor, the radio voice, the TV face, Mr. Eddy Kimani. Makofi tafadhali.
You're being far too kind, man.
No, but it's true, bro. Have I lied?
Well, let the people decide.
Let the people decide. So if you think he's a celebrity... unatuma 1,000 kwa M-Pesa. If you don't think he's a celebrity, unatuma 2,000 kwa M-Pesa. Alafu sasa tuone who wins. But bro, thank you so much for coming. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
It's good to see you in good health.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to sit with you. I mean, this is an amazing podcast, and I believe it has already defined its own space in a very important conversation in this time and age, and I'm glad to be part of it now.
Thank you, man.
I remember you talking about it.
Imagine
when you had not even started, and I think we had a ride one time in
your moti. I think I jumped out of a cab.
Yeah, you jumped out of a cab
to get into your car.
Me, got into the car, and it was sometimes when you take action to do something. We had not seen each other for a long time. We had not talked in a long time.
Yes.
So, and we all know, of course, Amani, you're a very bold and very brave man in what you do, and I really applaud you for what you're doing. It's not every day you find a man who purposes to do something. It's not easy what you're doing, and of course giving yourself out there to bring people to engage with, men to engage with, and giving this space to speak is really a very commendable effort by you.
Bro, you've said such kind words. Thank you.
I'm not saying this to
the affirmation, Maze,
it's the only way we can thrive, if we can help and build each other up, man.
True.
And
it's true.
Being very authentic about it. I am authentic about what I'm saying, and I believe this is just it's a very important part of the puzzle called life. These conversations, this sitting, and being able to sit and pick other men's minds on various issues that we should be conversing about. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I don't think men had these platforms to share and open up.
We didn't, and I don't even think we had the culture.
Yeah. You're right. It's the culture and the mindset.
The mindset of it.
Yeah.
You and I have been friends for years.
Yes.
But it was not until maybe 2-3 years ago that we actually started speaking our hearts and our minds to each other. True. I think it was just after you fell ill. And, and at about the same time I'd gone through, my high blood pressure issues, and we started talking maybe 4 years ago, and we talked about our different experiences of being unwell.
True.
And I think that's when we honestly started just being real.
True.
We'd been friends for years before that.
I would have liked
never.
it to be in different circumstances, but sometimes life throws you that curveball that you really don't have a choice but carve along with it and make the best of it. So I guess in our own worst scenarios, we managed to embrace that and sort of connect in a better way.
Mr. Eddy Kimani, bro, I'm having this conversation that we are the thematic of it is decade thinking, and it was started by a friend of the podcast, a guy called Edward Wanyonyi, who I think you should meet. That
would be good.
And I think you should throw this guy into Brotherman. He's so Eddie and I in a WhatsApp group that he started let's bring some men together and gives us space to talk. Decade thinking is basically about being able to recognize the fact that we're in a turn of a new decade.
A new page.
And a new page. And that new page gives us the opportunity to, sort of do some things differently. I think the opportunity it also gives us is the opportunity to look back at the last decade and see what do we learn from it that can help us get better with a new decade.
If I knew back then what I know now, if I understood the what, when, why, and how, now it's clear to me what I should have done. But hindsight is 20/20 vision.
And that's a conversation I was hoping to have with you because, we've gone through some pretty similar experiences in the last decade. And I just wanted to tap into part of your story and ask you, the last 10 years, and you look between 2010, 2009 maybe to 2019, what were your highlights? What were your big achievement moments, so you're like, I'm on top of the world, here I'm doing something I didn't think I would do, or here is a fruit of my labor that I'm looking at. What are your big moments from the last decade?
Wow, there are quite a handful. And I guess when you put in this position to sort of look back and see where you came from. And highlights could be as mundane as being alive at that time, being able to say you've got a roof over your head, you've got a salaried job, and you're doing a job that you love. For me at the time, I had already immersed myself into media, a career that, in a strange way I got into, though I had a passion for it. I got into it in very strange circumstances. Strange good, not strange.
Bad,
I mean, I would have expected better, but strange that, wow.
Yeah.
So 2010, I was at the point where I had a very good job at Capital FM as a sports presenter, newsreader, also a producer. We had a weekly sports show. And I would say I was at the height of that space, in that space that I was
media
in.
career.
I was happy.
Yeah.
Good paying job. I was doing what I loved. Working for an amazing radio station. And I had already made this name, Eddy Kimani, having been in media up to that point. Now, this is when, now looking within that 10 years, it's also the period when I got married. I married my wife, Nyambura. We had our firstborn son. We had gotten just before not just, but we had already gotten the son 7 years at that time. And 2012 is when we exchanged our vows. So life was good. Life was brilliant. And, learning to be a husband and a good husband at that. And that's now, of course, 2012, moving on to 2013. I'm acting, I'm getting opportunities to do other things that I love, doing voiceovers, some extra money coming in. It was all
at that time. I couldn't even get an MC job if you were pitching. If I was pitching with you,
no.
Like if I'm in the same room with if the client was looking at Amani Maranga and Eddy Kimani, there was no way I had that job, Bana.
No.
But it was a good time.
It was a good time.
It was a good
space. Now, half the time you would not really think about it that way until you have this kind of a conversation.
Yeah.
So the other times will be, I did that, I managed to do this and that. But now when you're made to think about it is when now you can even start getting emotional about it, because we do a lot of things in life and a lot of things happen in our lives, but we don't purposefully understand why they're happening. Why are we doing them? So it could be a breeze at the time, and maybe even during that period you're not taking it like a great moment, like a highlight. But now where we are seated here in this studio talking about it, and you asking me that question, it's almost nostalgic, because I think I really was in a very, very good place.
You were in a good place, and there was a lot, and still is, but because we are looking back, there was a lot to admire at the time, because you were bold. I mean, when you were acting and you were getting into that movie space,
space stage. I had done. I worked with Phoenix. Basically, my acting career started off professionally at the Phoenix Theatre, when Phoenix was Phoenix, when James Falkland was the go-to guy in stage acting. He was the guy. If you hadn't gone through James Falkland's hands as an actor, then
you're below par.
You're below par, because he was the ultimate acting coach and director at the time. And a lot of us guys in the media, the ones who were there during that period, a lot of them, I think their success is owed to that man. Because he brought it out of us, and he had the ability to make us bring out our talent, our creativity, our abilities to develop our acting chops, just be good actors. So that helped us. And a lot of media guys right now, some of them are very senior, either working in the public sector, some are running their own outfits. And he made a lot of us who we are right now. But now a lot of that was used during that period. When I was not looking for the jobs, now you're the one being called.
The jobs are following you.
We'd like you to feature in this commercial.
They were chasing you.
Yeah, so I was reaping the fruits in that period at least in that period, from what I had picked up during that time. And remember, I was a young Nakuru, green-eyed boy from Nakuru, landed in Nairobi in 1996. So yeah, it was an amazing journey to get to that point, starting of that decade, because I had so many dreams, I had so many ambitions, and by that time, 2010, I think I had achieved most of them. I'd been on radio, I'd been on TV, I've acted in commercials, I've been on stage with some great, amazing actors. I've traveled, I've gone to shoot commercials abroad. There's a time when you'd find that's the window where a lot of TV commercials were being shot in India.
Yes, I remember.
So by that time, I'd already achieved all that. And just to go back to the idea that sometimes we take things for granted. At that time, you're not thinking of how fortunate you are.
Yeah.
It's just now in hindsight that now you ask that question, and I think about that decade. A lot of that came out of the things that I dreamt about before the start of that decade.
Wow.
Yeah, which is what I was now ripping off. So you can imagine, it was a time I really enjoyed. I mean, and again, it was not all that. I mean, of course, I made some bad decisions.
We'll get to the bad decisions, but I want us to.
It was a highlight
to take a moment and look at the highlights, at the successes that those.
Those are the successes that I can say. The biggest one for me, of course, is getting a family, and it sort of puts you or sobers you up amongst all that the highs that you're going through at that time, because it again brings you down to earth.
Yeah, there's nothing that brings you down to earth as a wife who's unhappy with you this morning, or having to change diapers in your whole mightiness before you go out there and conquer the world.
Yeah, true.
You deal with some poop. True. To sort of just bring you
back in focus,
back to reality.
True.
I digress a bit. Where did you do your primo in Axe?
I went to Moi Primary.
You're in Moi Primary. Oh,
yes.
You know I was in Freehold Primary, eh?
You were in the two extreme parts of the
town. I was in Freehold Primary, and I'm an Axe boy. I think there's something about Nakuru that needs to be studied.
Yes, there is.
Because it's really produced some interesting people.
Oh yes, Nakuru has a story.
It has a story. It has a story, and I think it has a spirit. It has a certain spirit. And talking of Nakuru, it was part of your highlights for the last decade, going back to the town of your origin and serving the people of Nakuru.
Yeah, it happened that at the time when the phone call came through from somebody whom I did not know who he was. He thought Eddy would come on board and help with the communications department for the newly formed county government of Nakuru and for the newly elected and the inaugural governor of Nakuru, His Excellency Kinudhi Mbugua. So at that time, I'd done all that, what we've just talked about. Media I was high flying, and my job was great. I was happy. I was again, and this is part I raised what do you call this? The
antennas, the coat marks.
The coat marks.
Yeah.
Celeb.
Yes.
So all that, I had to make a decision on if I want to still continue with this long achieved dream of mine or pursue a new challenge. So I was given this opportunity to go and work in Nakuru County. What made it better was that this is my hometown.
Yes.
What made it even better is that I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to be part of the story of this new dispensation of the devolution system. So I'm looking at it from, wow, yeah, this is a good opportunity I'm being offered. These guys believe I can, do what they're asking me to do, which was to set up a communications department for the county government and the governor. Said, okay, why not? I just, and again, by that time, I'd gotten to a point where it was very easy for me to jump in the deep end.
Yeah.
I'd gone, a lot of things that happened to me at the time, and some of those highs came out of just being bold,
taking risks,
being brave and taking those risks. So I had really learned that whole conditioning that sometimes things in life you might need to just go head on. So I dived into it. Of course, shared the story with and the news with my wife, and it was not easy because again it meant us moving to Nakuru, but she was not comfortable with that idea. Of course, she had everything. She has a fantastic job here in Nairobi, and of course, out of respect and letting her also just be. Of course, she was going to support me. I moved out to Nakuru alone, so I took up this job. I didn't take it blindly. I really did a lot of research. I really consulted, and I even consulted the former, he still is, I think, the press secretary for His Excellency Daniel Arap Moi. That is Lee. Lee, and Lee Njiru was a man I went to when I now knew I got the job to sort of understand the nature of that. And he was a box of wisdom.
Wow.
Yeah, in terms of just telling me. So I knew it was not an easy job, so I just reached out to somebody who I thought. And he opened his door for me, sat down, and we had a chat about it, giving me some insight what it would be like to head a communications or a press unit for the county government. So that helped a lot in just getting in there. So it was a challenge that was not going to be very comfortable.
Would you consider that though like a highlight of your last?
It is my highlight because the decision to take up that job, because I don't regret taking that. Up to now, I do not regret it because it gave me the opportunity to understand how far I can stretch myself. How far can I go in taking risks? As much as it had its own repercussions, which I believe we'll get into, which I did not know about. But my highlight is that I was brave enough to take that leap, to take that jump from a very comfortable position I had at Capital FM, have my salary slashed to almost almost to nothing.
Wow.
Yeah. And just go back home, take up this new opportunity and, just write a new chapter. So for me, it was a highlight to do that. I'd been in media for so long. That thing of being comfortable.
I know it.
You can get so comfortable and most of the time it does not always end well for me. So for me, it was a highlight. And the highlight was taking up that decision.
I like discussing and taking moments to sort of just have a good look at like the good times, because there are certain things that you can actually learn from it. I think it's obvious when we go to bad decisions, and you've had some of these conversations in public. It's very easy to say this is what I learned from that, but often we don't ask ourselves, what do you learn from the good times? Or
the thinking of you'll only learn from the bad times.
Exactly.
Yeah, but what will you learn from the good times?
What will you learn from the good times? And there's something you've already said, and I want us to dig into it a little deeper.
Yeah.
You said that because of the space that you were in, when things were good, you were bold, and you could take risks, and you were able to. You had some gusto. And that's one of the things that you don't sort of become cognizant of. That there's a certain type of person you become out of success,
True.
And that person is a good person, that ability to take risks and to be bold and to try something new. What else do you think you can pick out from the time that you are doing well?
Besides just being bold, I believe it sort of arms you to be able to even, because being bold is a state. You're bold. You can face whatever comes, but it prepares you in terms of even tackling what is being thrown at you. So even when you're in a good space, you'll always have elements that will want to shake you. And it could be either that guy who doesn't like you being in that, who thinks he'd do better if he's in that position. But remember, you are thriving in what you're doing. So I guess it's just that confidence that you can face anything. It was not a very, very difficult decision for me to make at that time, because I believe I was really at a very good space. I'm a father, I'm a husband, I've got a solid family, they're supporting, they're behind me, and those are those support systems that help you when it comes to making such decisions. So it's not only about what pushes you when things turn out bad, but being confident enough in your ability to face whatever comes your way starts off that cycle when you start now taking them in as they come.
You know, I love what you're saying so much, because as I'm thinking about myself right now, when my successes of the last decade just came out from also a sense of self-belief, just that self-confidence that you're talking about. And I really believed I could do anything. Exactly. Like I thought I was Superman, like for real. Like if I lifted my fist, I thought I'd fly, like I thought I was Superman, and I wouldn't take no for an answer. I was like, it didn't matter. I would walk into a big office, a big names office, and I'm a nobody, meaning so doni bana. But because you've tasted some success, you walk into that office and you get a no from from a secretary or a gatekeeper. Like, you don't know who I am, bana. I will get to that guy to get to that job, and I did. True. So there's a certain self-confidence that came out of success. You said something else that I want you to note, that you had a support system.
True.
And it gave you some impetus.
It was immense. It was immense. Sometimes we are not even aware that it's a support system.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we find ourselves, we are too full of ourselves and busy being busy. But when you come to think about it, which I guess also we will get to that discussion later, when a lot of these things you realize in hindsight, when you've already hit the road and you are flat face on the road, that's when you realize these other systems or coping mechanisms that had been around you, positive coping mechanisms, because as you know, there is a negative.
Yes.
We get so engulfed in that race to just achieve. Of course, confidence you will build, you'll be bold, you'll face anything, but yes, sometimes we do not even notice
that we're doing it at the expense of the people that are actually supporting you.
Yes,
that are actually enabling you to be that.
That's actually the right word, enabling you. Yeah, we get so busy and clouded because our bottom line is just, I need to get this. I need to chase that paper. I need to get that paper. I need to do that. Unfortunately, we all go through that. But we come to learn the lessons of how to deal with that now. When you chapa the sakafu, you do a high five to that with your face on the floor.
Let's talk about that high five now, because and thank you for sharing the highlights and being able to just take time to reflect on the good that happened in the last decade.
You just nearly said last century.
I almost said century, but I'm like, you have gray. You're a silver fox, man. So
don't let my beard confuse you.
Like you look like a century guy.
But with hope, we'll do a century.
We'll do a century.
And now a word from our sponsors.
As a dad, the greatest gift I can give my family is security around their health. Do you know how the first time you have a child and all of a sudden there are medical expenses that come up that you never knew existed? Well, Minette has a great cover that caters for your young family. This cover is comprehensive and has features such as inpatient limits of up to 10 million shillings. It will take care of premature births, any complications during, after birth, or for both mom and child. For people who don't like the delivery room like me, this is such a sigh of relief, because you know at least the finances are taken care of. It even takes care of you when you accompany your child of up to 10 years to the hospital as a caregiver. And that's just the inpatient cover. Outpatient caters for dental, optical, gynecological, urologists, and mental health services, and is up to 2 to 3 times higher than other covers in the market. I highly recommend Minette Health, and it can be accessed online. They have made this purchasing process easier by creating a portal where any user can access their services directly from the website. To learn more about this cover, visit their Facebook page, Minette Kenya, or their website, collaborationkenya.minette.com. Buy your family a secure health future with Minette. And now, back to our story. Bro, the last decade, Nyorosha did a good one, eh?
We. Bila madharau. Straight up.
I mean, and I'm laughing. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you because
we will laugh together.
We've gone through it together.
True.
I mean, there was first the health challenge, that happened. And I know you've spoken about it a bit in public. But just for the sake of the people who haven't heard, you tell us what happened.
Well, my journey in the public service, of course, had really, engaged into high gear. It was 8 months into the job. Remember, I'm setting up a full communications. For anybody who's listening to this and they understand communications, it's not a one-man job. It needs a team. Yeah. Fine, I accepted the responsibility, and here I am, setting this up in a government
setup,
county government setup, and it's not easy. First, it's to make the county government setup understand the essence of communications. Yeah. Why? Because as we know, the local governments communications was nada. Yeah. It was new.
Nakuru was a county council.
Yeah, county council. Yeah. Kanjo.
Yeah.
Okay, here in Nauru is Kanjo. Yeah. Muni. Actually, it was Muni.
Municipal council. Yeah, it was a municipal council.
It was a Muni. So the biggest challenge I had was making them understand what is communication. Why do we need communications in a county government setup? How will it help you? How will it make you, thrive as a new entity, as a county government? So I had a lot on my plate setting that up. So for 8 months, I ran around like a headless chicken because I was a photographer, I was a speechwriter, I was doing the press releases, I was the one running the website, I was the one editing audio, I was the one responsible to deal and liaise with the media out there if they had an inquiry, you're the guy they're calling. So for the first 8 months, and it would happen to anybody who's setting up a new office just to get things going. And again, the setup that it would take a while.
Yeah, everything.
So it took a toll on me. And what it did, it sort of just exposed me to a lot of elements. The traveling, the moving, the exhaustion. And then one simple day, early morning, seated with our boss in his office for a meeting, my tongue just started tasting. It's as if I was biting metal. It's as if I was biting a spoon. The tongue had just developed this taste that I couldn't understand. My brain was trying to configure and find that, wait, you guy, what is this?
Umekula chuma.
Umekula chuma. So that is one. 2, my left eye started tearing. We in the office, of course, we are all, it was a cabinet, it was a meeting with all the CECs and the chief officers. So one of the CECs, a very good friend of mine, Dr. Mongai, was seated next to me, and I told him, hey, you guy, I have this sensation in my tongue, and I do not understand what it is, and my eye is tearing, and I feel as if half of my face is folding up. I did this because the boss was talking at the time. So it was a note I wrote to him. He just whispered back, you need to go and see a doctor right now. Panic. Because initially in the morning, I woke up, and the first thing at the moment when in the office at that time, when now this sensation came, I thought, the way you sleep badly on the side of your face, and it goes numb. Because that's the numbness that was there, but I did not even notice it. So immediately I excused myself, and I went to Aga Khan, the Nakuru satellite Aga Khan clinic. And that's where they did tests. They checked my blood pressure. Of course, at the triage, they found out it had spiked massively. And the funny thing about blood pressure is that it has no symptoms, so you can't tell.
I know. I went to hospital.
You did the same thing.
The guys told me I should have been having a stroke or a heart attack at the time.
Yeah.
Thankfully, by God's mercies, I wasn't in any of those states. But I was hitting Tusok over like 140.
I did some numbers. It's really hard even. It just went through the roof. So I got medication. They still couldn't tell what it was. The doctor just gave me some dawas and told me, you take some time off, go home and rest. At that time, my tongue is heavy. My face feels as if it's slouching on one side, like it's really deforming slowly. Luckily enough, I sort of sat down somewhere, actually at the Java, at the mall in Nakuru, and just sat down to recollect myself, because so many things were going on at that time. I was panicking. I didn't know what was going on. The doctors didn't understand, because they wanted me to come back for tests after I think the next day. They'd taken my blood, so I had to wait.
Yeah.
So luckily, a very good friend of mine, and he was also my best man in my wedding. He's called Eddy Kimani. He was actually on transit to Kisumu, so he stopped by the mall and found me seated at Java, and he was like, okay, what is going on? And I told him everything, and he told me, I think we need a second opinion. But he was kind enough to tell me that, and of course he saw what was happening.
He could see it.
He could see it. Yeah, he could see what was going on. Yeah. But unfortunately, he couldn't do much at the time, because he had another engagement ahead, so it was waiting for him. But it was a miracle that I met him, because I had decided I was going to go home and rest. So when he told me that, I also took heed of that. That's why it's good to listen to your friends.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, fine, I'll do that. I called the office. I told them, guys, I need transport to go to Nairobi right now. They gave me transport. I went to Nairobi, of course, met up with my wife, straight to Aga Khan. And the neurosurgeon who we met did like a 3-minute tests using a pencil, just asking me a few questions, checking my response and on my muscles on my face. And he told me what it was. It was Bell's palsy.
Wow.
And he told me, you had 72 hours before this thing had developed further or become worse. So I'm imagining if I had decided to go home that day, if I did not listen to Joe, then I've been talking a different story, because it can get severe where you even lose your eyesight. You basically get fully deformed. Half of your face stops working. And that's how bad Bell's palsy is. So I really appreciate that at that time I met Joe with his, because I didn't think about second opinions. I knew I've seen a doctor. I knew I've been given dawahs. So what? Eddy should just go home and rest. Yeah, so that's how it turned out. And this really hit me hard, because what happened is, with my background in media and having been on TV, it started giving me this, basically started eroding my self-esteem, because it deformed my face. A part of me that made me who I am, or who I was at that time. So all those thoughts were running through my head. I had a job which was really pushing me to the wall. So all those things were happening at that time. I started doubting myself. Did I make the right decision here? Because the doctor, again, funny thing about Bell's palsy is that there isn't one specific reason to why it happens. Because what happens is that a nerve collapses, and the nerves are situated just next to you, on the side of your head, just next to the ear. So one side, the nerve is dead. So what happens is that the side where the nerve is working, it's pulling the muscles or controlling the muscles, making that now one side is dead.
Because the right side controls the left side of your brain, and
that is some science there. So I got into a space now where I think now my downhill slope, the skidding and the sliding started from there. And I judged myself, I criticized myself. I started, because the first initial thought was that it was stress, or it was something to do with with exhaustion from work, because I'd really pushed it hard in those 8 months. And it got to that point where now I started wondering, why did I come to Nakuru? Why did I put myself in this space? And then that now rolled over with this many other things that started just collapsing around me. My marriage, making the wrong decisions about business, because as I'd mentioned earlier, I had to take a very big pay cut so I was trying to supplement that. So I thought, Eddy here, being a guy who is a forward-thinking guy, and he can supplement these things, I get into business in Nakuru to, of course, remember I still have a family back in Nairobi to do to support. And I just made uninformed, or I didn't think through those decisions that I made that involved finances. And then alcohol came in the way, and then infidelity checked in. Being away from my wife, of course, I won't say it's an excuse, but but it's something that I still regret that I did at that time. But it was one of the things and one of the many bad decisions that I made at that time. So that's when the drop now just got worse.
Wow.
I'm sick. I've got a very demanding job. At least by that time I'd started forming the team around for the communication department. Thirdly, I had my financial issues. My marriage was breaking at that time, which eventually broke, and we separated for almost 2.5 years. Yeah, so it was a part of that decade that will remain with me for a very long time, but for a good reason. I really picked up a lot from that experience and the learnings.
At what point was rock bottom?
Rock bottom is when I went home and knocked on my family home. My mom opened the door for me and I told her I failed. I need a place to stay. That broke. I was 39 years old at the time. And in this space, this landscape you're in as Africans, and the culture sometimes dictates a man cannot do something like that.
You don't go back to your mother's house.
You don't go back home.
Yeah.
But my friend, I had to. I didn't have any other place to turn to. I had lived with my friends. I had, I hid my problems. And that comes with its own consequences. When you think you're this man, that you're a superman, you can deal with it. Remember where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
I've gone through the journey where I believe I can do and face anything. I'm a superman, And then here comes this realization that Superman also cries. Superman also falls down to his knees. And sometimes Superman reaches out to ask for help. But I didn't know that.
From his mother.
Yes. She opened the door for me, prayed for me. And I went and stayed with her for a while. For quite a while, actually, as that contract still ran on at the county government. So it was the how do I describe it? It was a moment where now it dawned on me that, Eddy, you are in proper
it's okay, I can say it.
Yeah, I'm trying to choose my words carefully.
I could see it.
Until it's a family show. Yeah,
it's
a family podcast.
It's an adult podcast. It's an adult podcast.
Yeah, but you can say kids nowadays going on to phones and
that's true, even and my children. But
Daddy, who is this Eddy Kimani on podcast? Let me listen.
Yeah, and he said shit.
Yeah, so that was my worst. It was, and the funny thing about it is that once you get to a point like that, you're not ashamed anymore. You're ashamed before you make a decision like that, because you do not know what people are going to think about you. You do not know because that home is the same home where it was, where I grew up. 20, 25, even 30 years before that. So you still have your same neighbors there who know you've gone on ahead to become Eddy Kimani. So you're looking at the situation where you'll be opening the gate and getting out, jumping into a tuk-tuk to go to work, jumping into a matatu to go to work, and everybody's just looking at you. Wait a minute, sioni Eddy Kimani, kweni kulienda? So all these things are they're in your head. They're in your head. You wonder how are you going to deal with them? And this is before I made that decision, because I really had to think it through. I didn't just wake up one night and say, today I'm going home. Otherwise I would have done that a long time ago. But I had a lot of demons to fight with. What will people think about me when I tell them I'm still staying home? What will people think about me when I say I've gone back home to my mother's house? What will people... But what eventually helped me to make that decision is being honest with myself. Because I had to be honest with myself. Something that we men find hard to do. Being honest, and more importantly, forgiving yourself for the mistakes you've done. We do not know how to forgive ourselves. We'll forgive other people for the things they do to us. But we forget us. So I had to accept that, yes, Eddy, you failed. I had to accept, Eddy, you are no longer the Eddy you thought you are. So coming to terms with that made it very easy for me to pick up that bag from my friend's house. Alan, thank you very much. He hosted me several times after being kicked out twice. And he he's a guy who I would say really stood by me while in Nakuru. Yeah, and again we were in sort of same scenarios because also his family was in Nairobi, and we were together in Nakuru. He was running his business, I was doing county, and he's one of those guys who really just held my journey, and he also helped me to make that decision. Sometimes we have friends who don't help you make those decisions that matter,
that must be made.
That must be made. We have friends who will scatter around because they're trying to make you or not. They're trying not to hurt you. So you'll find friends who will not help you, even if how bad that decision you have to make. You need those friends who will approve that decision, as opposed to friends who will just try to sugarcoat things or try to make you comfortable. So he was one of those guys who really put things into perspective for me when I made that journey back home. He was living in Mlimani. Our home was Shabab.
Yeah, Shabab.
Yeah, I remember that trip very well. Taking a tuk-tuk from Mlimani to Shabab and knocking on that door and saying, you know what? Sukuzuri.
Hey, I want to. I have several questions. Sorry. I identify with rock bottom very well. I know it. I was lucky. I didn't have I didn't have to go back to my mom's house. But I've been very close. In fact, last year for me was the year that would have sent me to my mom's house. You know, and I don't even feel like I'm out.
We met beginning of 20 at that time on the road.
Yeah, it was
2018 or 2019, early 2019.
Yeah,
early 2019. Yes,
early 2019.
Yes.
And last year was a rough year for me financially. I had to move out of the house I was living in the middle of the year. But that was not my rock bottom. At that point, at least I was going through tough financial times, but I was already getting out of the bad psychological space. I was getting out of depression.
Exactly.
I was like, things were moving.
Exactly.
It's just that the finance caught up later.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
Your mom, the period you stayed with her, what did it do for you?
Again, we go back to the whole concept of support system. It helped me recalibrate where I was. That time going back sort of helped me to readjust my position in my own mind. Where was I? Because she opened the door with open, loving arms, like any other mother would do.
Most mothers.
You know, most mothers, let's put it that way. Held my hand, prayed for me, kept on telling me everything will be okay. And sometimes I think our parents or our mothers have more faith in you than you have in yourself. And you'll always find yourself doubting, but you have somebody next to you who is seeing you from a different point of view. So that really helped a lot. You know, being with her also. And in retrospect, I think it was also due. Because remember, through this journey we've talked about my highlights, being in media, working for all these TV stations, doing all these things. I was away
from home.
I was away from home. I was not as close with my mom as I thought I should have been. So in a way, and this is one thing I always encourage people, try and get the best out of these things that we go through in life. What I get out of this was the fact that I managed to spend so much time with her that in my mind I knew I was making up for this time that I disappeared from her. Because I came to Nairobi in December 1995. I got into the whole rat race. Jobo. I got a job at a very young age. I got into media, straight onto TV, onto radio, doing TV commercials, doing films. And I was running around doing me. And let me speak for myself. And I, to some point, I don't think I became the good son that she thought I should have been. So in a way, in retrospect, I look back and say, wow, some things do happen for a reason. That I had to go back home because I stayed with her for a couple of, actually several months, up to around November 2017. Yes, sorry, 2017. Yeah. I think also getting all this ticket thing and counting numbers. I was not the best at it. But it got me thinking, let me look at the positives of this. I'm with my mom. What other support system did I need at the time? So it also became a time for us to bond again, afresh. You know, and she always kept on, and she always told me this. She always had a dream where she's seeing me going away, going farther and farther and farther away, disappearing. And she had told me this from way back when just before I got into this whole space as a media personality and all that. And it came and hit me that actually that is what
had happened. Yeah.
I went away. So when I got back home, dragging along my baggage, my problems and everything, it's more or less like that prodigal son story.
Going back to the father.
And those dynamics, of course, not the same, but really sort of complement each other. So going back home for me was actually for my mom. To go and make up for the time that I believe I stayed away from her pursuing these dreams. And Nairobi and any other big city can actually blind you.
It sucks you in.
Yeah, it's a race. Yeah. And you get blinded and forget what really matters. You forget your that support and family, immediate family support.
It's everything.
A crazy support system.
So you're with your mom, and this at this point your marriage
it's collapsed.
It's done.
Proper. So we were not talking, we were fighting. I've not spoken to my kids for a very long time, for quite a long period. Sporadically we would speak. I would go to Nairobi and stay with a friend, go see the kids, but not enough to. Yeah. So it was also another. That's also another page of
pain,
and
a sense of failure.
Yes,
I know it very
proper
well.
failure, my friend. It breaks you.
I want to talk about the story of probably a guardian angel that God sent your way when you were in Ukunda.
Yeah, Ukunda. South Coast.
Next on Living Truthfully, the reconciliation story. Bro, that's not a common story.
It's not common, and it's not easy.
Tell me that story. Tell me that reconciliation story.
And one thing I've promised myself is that I'll help my sons to understand it's okay to fail. Wow. We're not teaching them that. I would like them to understand it's okay to fail, it's okay to fall and stand up again. It's okay to break. You know, it's okay to not pass. But that should be now the impetus to help you improve and become better. So in hindsight, I say, what if I knew these things I know now? What if I knew them then? But since it's now, I think I'll just embrace them and make myself a better man with the lessons that I have learned. Because if I do not make any effort to embrace the lessons that I learned, then what is the reason for living?
This is Living Truthfully.